Today's episode is brought to you by cattle. Every product launch faces a chicken and egg problem. You need reviews to convert, but you need conversions to get reviews. Cattle can help.
Cattle helps brands win share. They leverage their consumer panel for insights, collecting receipts, and driving product ratings and reviews. It is the largest daily active survey panel in Canada, with over 10,000 daily active users and over 100,000 monthly active users. Let cattle be your chicken and or your egg, depending on your perspective. Visit getcattle.com to learn more.
Just being very intentional with your decision making and making active choices versus being passive on the journey. The more that you can lean into being, a decision maker in your own path, I think is really helpful, right? And I think everyone has great ideas separated by their being doers as well.
Welcome to Hearts and Carts, the CPG podcast, the podcast about the people behind the products that are winning hearts and filling carts. This cast is for anyone with an interest in the world of consumer products. We're your hosts, Justin Osborne and Alex Hill, and our mission is to bring you weekly content that helps you be a better and more informed CPG professional. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hearts and Carts. It's Alex, your co-host, and I'm here with Justin, and we are getting ready to meet with an exciting entrepreneur from the east side of Canada. Justin, who are we chatting with tonight?
We are meeting with Andrew Russell, who is the Chief Growth Officer at Made with Local. He's working directly with his wife, Sheena Russell, who is the original founder. And in the past, he's even been an Olympic athlete. So some really cool, exciting turns in his career. Can't wait to chat with him about Made with Local, all the amazing things that they're doing, just hearing about the growth that the brand is under. If you haven't already, remember to like, subscribe, give us those 5-star reviews, follow us on social media, and here we go. Andrew, how are you?
Hey, how are you going?
Good to see you, man. Yeah, you're a little bit foggy in there, but
yeah, come on. Potatoes all over my screen. Is that a little better? Or should I get a...
It's good. That's good. That's much
good.
better. It's much better. How's life? We were just saying you're taking this call pretty late your time, so
you know what? There's
good.
kind of this sweet spots for personal time. It's like pre 6:30 a.m. post kiddo bedtime, but yeah,
it's
works.
So funny. That's exactly what we had said. He said it's probably kids going down because my son goes down at about 8:30, so I'm like, this is probably right after, and it's get this done and then go to bed. It's the quietest time in your house probably.
Yeah, it's a little bit of me time, so this is fun. No, I'm happy to do it. Alex, pleasure to meet you as well.
Great to meet you too, Andrew. How's everything out on the East End?
We are doing all right, man. I'm in my final ramp up. I'm going to run in the Cabot Trail Relay this weekend.
Nice.
Oh wow.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
No,
I haven't.
No, so it's
not the relay.
This 17-person team running race that goes around 17 legs of the Cabot Trail in Cape Breton.
Yeah.
So there's some pretty crazy hills and some exciting stuff. So I have 3 brothers. 4 of us will all be on this one team together. So it should be a blast.
Yeah.
What's the total distance you're running?
Mine is 18K.
Nice.
And the first 6 and change are uphill over a pretty serious grade.
I'm sure there will be nice views at the top of those hills.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I'll say I've driven that and it's extremely hilly. Oh man, and wild. But yeah, like incredible. That's one of the most beautiful places in Canada, I think, if you drive around the Cabot Trail. It's unreal.
Yeah, fingers crossed that we get a good weekend for it. So yeah, that's exciting. I mean, life at the businesses go always, and kiddos are good. Sheena's doing well. So yeah, no, things are good.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear. I was telling Alex just before you hopped on that I met you in an unusual way. I was thinking about moving out to Halifax, and I think like classic East Coast person, just super nice and generous with their time. You're like, yeah, I'll talk to you for 45 minutes about life out here and business out here, and you just let me pick your brain. So I was like, it's like, Alex,
we're always recruiting guys. We want good people.
yeah, I guess so.
We just want to get people out here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, I think you've seen probably a lot of people move out there during the pandemic and stuff, because everyone that goes out there is like, what are we doing here? Let's move there and be near the ocean and around all these amazing people. So I get it. I think if I wasn't such a baby when it comes to winter, I'd be living there right now.
Yeah. where you're still on the West Coast, right, Justin?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on Vancouver Island, which I always think of as like Vancouver Island to me is pretty similar to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah. How about yourself, Alex?
I'm just outside of Hamilton, in a
Okay,
place called
sweet.
Dundas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we kind of got the whole spectrum here between the
Nice.
three of us.
I like it.
yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Well, Andrew, how about I give you a quick introduction for our listeners, and then let's jump into things.
Sure.
Awesome. So, guys, today we have Andrew Russell, who is the Chief Growth Officer of Made with Local. And Andrew, just super excited to learn about you, your journey, and your career. You've done some amazing things before going into business, and you've done some different things in business before Made with Local. So I think what we want to do is just kind of go back and talk about you, starting out in school, undergrad, whatever, and kind of how you kind of forged your path. I know don't hesitate to tell us about, your trip to Beijing and what you might have been doing there, because I think that's really interesting. And
We haven't had anyone on the show that's done that, so that's definitely unique. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's such a pleasure, guys. I'm very honored to be on here. Yeah, I've had a little bit of a funny path, so I'll take you kind of through my undergrad and some choices there. I did an undergraduate degree at Queen's University, focused international studies and politics. And when I finished, I worked in Halifax again with our Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation and was just looking to gain some experience in the corporate world and had a bit of an epiphany. I had previously been quite a high-level athlete with the Junior World Championship teams for Canoe Kayak Canada in the sprint discipline, which for those listeners would be the one where you're kneeling on one knee and you're one of those skinny boats paddling single side. So I had done a lot in that sport, but it had some injuries, and I had this kind of what if moment that I had to give that a shot, or else I would ask myself 20 years down the road, why didn't you at least figure out whether or not you could have done something with it? So gave a real go of that and started training full time again, and made a really quick rise. I was very fortunate to surround myself with some great athletes and kind of chased my way to the top, and spent 6 years on national team and was fortunate enough to race in Beijing with my partner, Gabrielle Beauchamp-Sevigny, in the C2, which would be canoe doubles, 500-meter and 1,000-meter distances. We placed 6th and 5th for Canada, which I'm very proud of. It's, to date, the best combined results in Canadian history. So we were really excited. We were close to the hardware, not quite a medalist, but we had such a great experience. So that really shaped a lot for me. I went for another quadrennial till 2012, and unfortunately we were capable of making that team, but it's all about the journey, right? So in 2012, I retired from the sport formally, had a wonderful path with that, and I got into doing my MBA in Halifax at St. Mary's University. So I think that was like kind of the formative sport and transitioned into school years, which, just gave me such an amazing opportunity to see the world and to just challenge yourself at such an incredibly, I don't know, illuminating way. You're pushing yourself to the absolute brink, and then constantly kind of even pushing that threshold that much more each year to try and challenge at the world stage. So it was a really, really wonderful experience. And after I did my MBA, I started being really interested and got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. And I first started with it was an event-based company. I've always been the event guy with the canoe team. As a national team, I was the organizer that brought people together for different events. And I don't know, it's just something I gravitated towards naturally. And so did things that I knew. So I brought Olympians and aspiring national team athletes together and teamed up with the Canadian Olympic Foundation. And we were an official partner of theirs using the rings. We had RBC as a title sponsor with an event called FanFit that I started in Halifax and grew that nationally. And it was essentially democratizing the ability to challenge yourself alongside the best athletes, almost in a versus style where you got a barometer of your total sport effort across strength and power and endurance. It was really cool bringing passion and a bit of entrepreneurship together. And I grew that for a number of years and hit an inflection point where it was getting quite big. And we were also, my wife Sheena and I, we had lots going on, and she was growing Made with Local as well at the time. And it kind of hit that point where it was time for one of us to settle off the entrepreneurial route, which made a ton of sense because FanFit was growing, but I think the events are very, very demanding business. So I decided to switch gears and kind of help from the sidelines with Made with Local. And I started working in sport locally in in Nova Scotia. And then fast forward, and 3 years ago and change, I jumped into Made with Local, and I guess the rest, yeah, history to date. That's a long, winding bio.
Oh, I like it. I am also a poli-sci undergrad who went back and didn't go to law school and did an MBA instead. So we got that in common. And you started what, October 2019 at Made with Local. And prior to, you spent some time, looked like aside from FanFit, you did some work with Triangle Strategies. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that was, and looks like it's a little bit different than the consumer products side.
Yeah, so it was a boutique healthcare specialty consulting practice across a few different industries. There's a mentor of mine, Robert Zed, that brought me in with him, and he also gave me the ability to incubate the FanFit idea under his group of businesses. He had really unique exposure, and he was a great mentor for me. So I was able to team up with him on some various healthcare strategies, on some private entry points for various businesses working in the healthcare sector. And it was good. It was great for me to learn that space and generalized consulting strategy, like management consulting, across fairly general barometer of different verticals. I didn't say that long with it. I went kind of shift more into the advisory as FanFit took off, but that's kind of where I got my start full time. And I still stay in close touch with that group, and they're fantastic. And also, I guess in my CV, I did some work with Robert and his team as well through some professional facilitation, and I really quite enjoyed that experience too.
Awesome.
That's great. So you mentioned, while you were doing this, Sheena was starting her own company. So maybe introduce who she is and where. I'm guessing you were helping her with some of this stuff as well on the side. So, what is Made with Local, and where did it start? What was the inspiration behind it? And for anyone that hasn't tried it, maybe talk about some of the products.
Yeah, for sure. So Sheena is my wife and also the CEO of Made with Local. She's our founder here. She co-founded it with another partner originally, Kathy, and she's kind of grown it over the number of years. And yeah, Sheena is born and bred PEI native, and she grew up on a farm, family farm, with her father was a baker. And for me, I think that passion and the intersection of her upbringing kind of exposed her to those cool, points, which I think were really the fabric of Made with Local brand identity that she's carried forward. Is it's really about the roots of quality ingredients, and then the way that we take it to market. So for her, Made with Local as a brand name and concept has evolved over time as we've grown regionally and nationally, and even to a small extent internationally. But it started with the farmers market table in the Halifax area, where she was sourcing as many local ingredients as possible. And it was the early wave of the natural products movement, I should say, on the East Coast for us. And she just wanted to make really delicious products that also had some of these incredible vendors featured. So she started with bars, and yeah, just fell in love with the concept and tinkering and creating new recipes. And yeah, so that was really the real roots of it, was a farmer's market table. And, it's really just grown organically, and more recently, a little more aggressively with the foot on the gas. But yeah, that's the starting point.
Very cool. I want to probe there. So tell us what's going on with Made with Local today, and then I'm going to back up after, because I have other questions along the way. But where is it sold, and kind of what's the distribution situation, and where?
Yeah, absolutely. So from that farmers market 6 to 8 foot table that I mentioned earlier, so today we're now found coast to coast in retail across Canada. So Loblaws, Shoppers Drug Mart, Sobeys, Safeway, London Drugs. You can find us at Healthy Planets in Ontario, on well.ca, Costco.ca, our own website as well. Yeah, so we're very widely distributed from coast to coast. Really excited about that. Our main products, which I should have touched on a second ago, the main products are real food bars. And, we're really proud of that, because I feel like when you have a Made with Local product, we want you to really taste the quality and that whole story, the origin story of bringing together such incredible ingredients and quality ingredients. And it's one piece of our business. We really never, we never veer off course. It's always about sourcing the best ethical products. And it's also the process too. So we would like to think it's a busy category, but when we think about our snack products, and the bars are what we're most well known for, we're hoping you taste something that truly feels homemade. It's almost like you're getting a homemade cookie feel in terms of the product you're biting
Mhm.
into. So it's slightly different than the majority of the category, where it's a soft baked product with a different type of process taking it to kind of being packaged. And we think that that makes a huge difference, so that you get something that is both such incredible quality in terms of the ingredients and components of it, but also you can really taste the difference in how it's made. So you get this decadent, almost, yeah, like this little mini reverie of enjoyment and satisfaction. And I've been eating for a decade now, and I've never gotten sick of them. So I know that's the
It's a
most
good
honest
sign.
money there is, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're really great.
Yeah,
That's
they
incredible.
are good. I eat the peanut butter brownie ones and the coconut dark ones as well more often than I'd like to mention, but delicious. They are different than a lot of other bars I've had. To your point, they just feel a lot less processed, if that makes
Hmm.
sense, right? Like a lot of bars seem like you open them up and they've there's like a whey protein layer and they're covered in something and they're just very like processed. This feels a little bit different. Just the way you bite into it feels like something that was made in a kitchen that could be at a farmer's table or something like that, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think we've tried. I appreciate you saying that, Justin, because I think we've tried to scale some of those original tenets that we put into it as best we can. And
Yeah.
sure, it's a two steps forward, one back kind of process, as you guys know probably much better than me in the CPG landscape. You're constantly tinkering to hit more people and meet more people with your products where they're at. But yeah, some of those original pieces around making real quality products with a real focus on, I like to think that they're really amongst the best tasting clean label products you can find. There aren't a number of the additives that you would see or ingredients you can't pronounce or things that you're just not sure if you can really trust. Like, you look at our label, you can really trust the products there, and it's a great consistent feel, which, we like to feel like that when you see a made with local product. That trust is there, that you can just know that you're going to each and every time.
I love the focus. I love the focus and you guys clearly know your brand heart, right? Like what you're built on. Curious how many iterations it took you guys to get to your current bar. I'm always curious about the process of the tinkering.
Yeah, that's a question. Interesting. I like jogging down memory lane now to just think about it. And just like to back up 1 second, when you mentioned the piece about the brand heart, and that's really, I think we'll probably touch on that later. That's Sheena first and foremost. She really is the product visionary. And, I'm a cheerleader doing my best to pull pieces together to support what I think is a wonderful vision. But I think the tinkering is ongoing. The products have hit their final form, but we're always experimenting. For the most part, though, the soft baked element of what we were making has been there from start to finish. There's been some iterations with certain ingredients that were limited time or just didn't quite scale the way we'd hoped, and we've kind of gone back and forth with different things. But for the most part, that kind of tenet of discovering the kind of oats and honey and
Yeah.
smooth nut butters and so forth, that's kind of been there pretty early on, actually.
Got it. Got it. So more like a 2.1, 2.2, just kind of refining.
Mm.
You talked about scaling and having to make decisions as you scale. And, one of the places I want to take us is just, you came in ops, now you're in growth, which are related, but fairly, can be fairly different depending how you do it. So curious about the experience in each of those two kind of capacities, especially ops, because you started in ops in October 2019. I don't want to trigger you with any sort of traumatic flashback here, but something happened in March 2020, which was probably, I think, hardest for people in ops to manage. So yeah, tell us about those two roles and how they've both been and some of the big learnings between them.
Yeah, for sure. So when I jumped into the company, I was, Sheena and I wanted to align our time, and we wanted to be kind of in together. And it was a dream that we kind of jumped into quicker than I think we would have expected. But there was an opening we needed to fill, and things were moving fast. And yeah, so I was excited to jump in. Ops was where we needed help, and I was excited to do it. So the start of the relationship for me was really managing co-packing relationships, inventory, production runs, the logistics, the shipping. Everything was brand new for me from day one. SOPs. I had obviously had periphery knowledge of a lot of
Mhm.
what was going on with the business, but it was a lot of hands-on learning, which, to this date has been more or less every role. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Like I think throughout the company's fairly like deep generalists. So I've been able to take certain pieces to a certain extent, but we've then hired people much smarter than me to be able to fill in those gaps. And I'd say the biggest piece too from kind of then to now is we're now self-manufacturing, which is quite recent. And then we were working with two co-backing relationships, and one of them is worth noting is really significant piece of our origin story is working with the Flower Cart Group out of New Minas, Nova Scotia. So they're a social enterprise, which is a big meaningful piece of our graduation of the business over the years. And Sheena literally worked with them. You know, the business was growing. She was pregnant with her first child, and you know, belly was literally I've heard her tell this story. I'm probably regurgitating her exact words, but basically her belly was getting big, and she wanted to keep this thing going, but she couldn't do it anymore and needed somebody. So they filled in and started gradually weekly doing a few hundred bars, and then we scaled with them over time to be doing 8 to 10,000 a week. And we just kind of over time hit a capacity, and that was during the point when we felt like we wanted to keep really growing, which eventually took us to making the decision to invest in our own manufacturing. But yes, during that whole chronology, there was this thing called COVID, the lost years, and yeah, we had some shaky moments for sure. Nova Scotia was pretty buttoned down, and social enterprises were closed here. So we had a 6 to 8 week stretch there where we essentially lost all of our production in Nova Scotia. So there was one pretty dicey stretch where we were traveling, you know, one person team down to the valley, which is about an hour-ish from our home. And we're getting up really early and traveling down there and doing one-man production runs and doing what we could just to keep things moving. It was a pretty shaky time, huh? You know, it's no lie.
Seriously.
You know, looking back now, we have certainty, but at the time, we just really didn't know. It was all novel and unprecedented. And so, yeah, there was definitely some fear and definitely some concern about, you know, what the heck are we doing? This is not sustainable. We know we can't stop, but, you know, we have to figure out what's next. And anyway, it shaped us. I think it really got us, for me personally, it got me really close to the product and understanding its production path and like right in the minutia, every recipe. And, you know, we, again, pointing to the Flower Cart Group, they were really helpful in what they could do to support us. They did, and you know, we wouldn't have made it. Anyway, we're here. It's quite a journey.
Yeah, survived and even stronger, right? Like come out of it even stronger.
I think so. Yeah.
The decision to self-manufacture versus a co-man. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, why you made that decision. I think that's a tough decision for any relatively new brand, right? They try and decide which one to do and they're not sure. So maybe just for our listeners that are in that spot, kind of any advice there, or even your, you know, what went into your decision?
Yeah, I think it's a decision we agonize for, and like many things, opportunity presented that was serendipitous right when we were at like a key decision point and the factors lined up and we weighed the pros and cons and what we just made sense to us at the time. I think the things we were longing for were we just wanted a bit more control. Our product is something that it's not an easy product to make because of the process being more unique. So it's not as ubiquitous through the co-packing spaces. It is a bit more involved. And for that reason, it's challenging, right, to simply just kind of switch on or off in terms of the number of runs. And we were at an awkward space too in terms of the production run sizes. And we certainly didn't have mega bucks behind us as well to run huge runs. So we were really fortunate to find an opportunity to invest in our own manufacturing where we had some partners through our local federal agency and such to be able to find the finance to do it. And it made sense on paper and it gave us the opportunity to have control. And yeah, it's probably a little crazy at the time looking back at, you know, what's transpired between then and now. But I think we're really happy now after a really challenging stretch to get it all up and running that we did what we did.
Yeah, how long ago was that? I remember seeing it on LinkedIn. It's in the last like 6 months to a year or so, right?
It just like super low operational in October was kind of when things started, and yeah, like kind of running full steam in New Year.
Amazing. And one thing I'm curious, I just want to probe on. It sounds like you guys did it without raising capital through equity, and you guys were able to do it through some, you know, other ways. How you know, any guidance there for people looking to emulate? I think, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think that kind of to answer your question, we have raised a little bit of equity, but nothing
Mhm.
in like venture grade or anything significant
Yeah.
to the stage. For us, it just came down to the numbers and kind of head, heart, and gut when we made the decisions. We knew we wanted the control and some kind of opportunities to be a bit more nimble in terms of bringing products to market and just owning the quality story and
Yeah.
being less disjointed. I think the equation with shipping and running multiple facilities it is very cumbersome in terms of just the management, and we're still a lean team, so that was a challenging piece. And then the numbers, yeah, we just
Yeah.
agonized over the numbers and ran the numbers, and it felt like the right choice. And I guess it was essentially time for us to graduate from some of the relationships we had. And all good things to say about the folks we worked with. It just felt like the right time and the right opportunity.
Makes sense. Now, current role, Chief Growth Officer. So talk to us about what's the day to day there, and the focus, and kind of where you're flexing now, now that you're kind of moved from ops over to that.
Yeah, I'd say it's a vague title by design. Yeah, so we're extremely lucky. So like I was saying earlier about hiring, the team, we have some really strong personnel in place. We've been very fortunate to be blessed by a really great string of hires. So in terms of operations specific to the plant, we have a fantastic COO named Brian Alloway that joined the company that's been really instrumental in allowing us to do what we're doing and to take some of the concern away from that. So my focus has shifted more with the newfound capacity in the plant and that to supporting our sales and business development efforts, and then being a little tighter to the numbers and performance and considering kind of how we're going to fundraise and finance our growth going forward and kind of that strategic side. So a bit more out of the weeds and a bit more kind of across the big considerations kind of on ops growth and finance. I
Very
don't know if
cool.
that answers your question or if I just gave you a vague answer to it.
No, I think
Good.
it does. It makes perfect sense. I mean, ultimately, I think it's a great way to have learned the business, going through the fire of COVID and everything else that, as you said, brings you close to the product. But being the person out in front of the customer is a natural progression, I think. Obviously, like, we're a consultant. I think something would probably come natural after an experience like that. But on the other side, building up process, building up those those bird's eye views, P&Ls, product P&Ls, and all that kind of stuff is, I think, something that gets overlooked often in startups, and it's hard to find time for, I think, in a lot of cases. And if you're able to prioritize it, it's like a superpower, right? So just helps make sure that you guys are steering the ship even more effectively. So yeah, makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
And I think it's day to day too. I think
Yeah.
and I would expect most CPG founders or folks kind of lurking in that higher level that are steering a ship understand that, like, you get pulled in a lot of different directions, which is the nature of the industry, especially today. And so, yeah, I'll pop in where necessary, and certainly kind of rewinding into the fall. I spent the first month every day, quite long hours at the facility as it opened. There's nights there that you're up way later than you'd like to admit, cleaning dishes and pans and stuff. But, it's all part of the journey and the process. And sometimes it's quite funny. I found laughing about something so tangible being just like gratifying, that you're just like literally seeing a thing versus typing away in your computer. So it's kind of nice to
That's true.
oscillate between the two. But yeah, no, it's been great. I think of myself deeply as kind of an energized generalist, and gradually, work myself out of a role in different places. And I think if we can keep doing that, that will mean that we're going in the right direction.
Like it.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier, I guess, around the heart, and Sheena being the heart, and some of the stuff that I love about the brand is sort of the mission, the focus on being a force for good. So maybe jump into a little bit of that, and I think that's a big piece of not just product being amazing and tasting amazing, but to me that's a big piece of really what makes Made with Local different.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think, Sheena genuinely, deeply, and sincerely cares about the product she's putting out there. She's not going to cut corners. And, from day one, and how she brought things together and how she continues Sheena does the prototyping of the products. And then I would say, outside of, all the demands of a CEO, her biggest passion would be around the marketing and the storytelling for what we do at Made with Local. And I think I'm always impressed by it. She would shrug it off as she's just finds such an amazing way to bring the authenticity forward in a way that connects with people. And I think that from day one, she's managed to make really meaningful connections with customers and people that fall in love with the product. And the more they learn about the other layers underneath and the painstaking attention she puts into, supporting progressive voices in the community and things that haven't always been popular in vogue, she's been doing for years now. Before it was meaningful to be interested in regenerative agriculture or be interested in kind of small size farmers and, where products actually come from. That was born in her. So she definitely had an innate advantage to have an interest naturally, but it was something she followed through on consistently. So I think that those things, at least I hope, they shine through in what the brand's all about. And for me, kind of when you step back for a second and look at what she's built and, continues to build and the vision there, I think that, and I hope that is what shines through. It's just the deep authenticity for each step of the journey. I mean, that's one of the things I'm most proud about when I think about our products and the people we serve and kind of what we plan to keep doing with the business. I think that, there's just a deep pride and ownership over each of the steps we take with what we're putting out there in terms of our products. You just really want to be intentional at every step of the path that she does that in spades, which is pretty awesome.
Sheena, if you're listening, this guy has a lot of respect for you. So
yeah, he's answering all these questions 100% correctly.
He's on the other side of the room staring.
we're not releasing the video, but his eyes are not shifting. This does not look forced.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. Like we have a great dynamic. We have, we'll challenge each other also quite sternly on things we believe in. But I think that, at the end of the day, we have a deep respect for one another, which I think, makes it possible to work together, husband and wife, right? Because a lot of other business bleeds into each day, right? It's not for the faint of heart to go on the path. So no, we're pretty lucky that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so you talked about your distribution in Canada, basically everywhere. You find your products almost everywhere, which is amazing. And a little bit in the US. What's next for you guys? Like, what's next for the brand? Is it expansion more in the US? Is it new product lines? Of course, don't share any secrets that you don't want people to hear, but what type of exciting things are coming up for you?
Yeah, so I think one thing we've been really excited about is connecting with our customers more online and also just telling more about how the products are being made and with our factory and with a bit more ability to tell that story up front and personal. We'll be doing more of that. And I think in tandem, we'll also see our online shop start to expand in terms of the product offerings. I think that, we're going to round out as a snack food company, so you'll see some new entrants into our online shop in the next few months, which we're really excited about. So, and I think that we'll continue to tell that story online. And we also have a prototype that, our core customer from the early days have been young moms, and without blowing too much too soon because it's still going through the commercialization process, our moms and family households will be really pleased about the next set of products that come out from Made with.
I'm excited. Yeah. My wife will like that.
Yeah, I'm now very curious.
Yeah, me too.
But
I'm not going to make guesses on here, but they're in my head. Andrew, a question we like to ask everyone is, what is their brand crush? What's a brand out there other than your own that you just love what they're doing? You maybe love their products, or you love the way they're taking their product to market or branding or anything. Any real reason you might like them.
This is going to be some East Coast homerism, so I'm just going to put that out there as a caveat to start. I love the Libra non-alc beers. I think that they do a fantastic job.
Future guest coming on the show, actually. So,
Mitch or Deborah?
Mitch is coming on, right?
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. I also I was speaking to authenticity. I love their story. I love kind of why they brought the product to market. I think it was the right time. As somebody that likes a beer too, I think it's a great routine. Like I genuinely enjoy the product through the week. It's nice to break it up, and it also just it's a great tasting product too. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool and it's chic in a time when having a really approachable non-alc choice through today's society makes a ton of sense.
100%.
Yeah, I love that. I love those products. So I would say that's a brand crush for sure.
I'm also I'm also a big fan of Libra. We saw them at CHFA, and I was like gushing at them about
He was.
how I like not to not I'm not going to name any other non-alcs, but like you can drink a Libra with your friends who are drinking beers, and like sometimes people kind of poke at you for drinking the non-alc when they're all having alcoholic beers. Libra, like the packaging's beautiful, and then additionally the product's awesome inside the can. So it's
Yeah. The hazy is so good.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm a super fan on that side of things.
Good shout out.
Good shout out for sure. And then last question here for you is sort of your career insight soapbox moment. So if you were standing in front of, yourself when you were graduating from Queens, or somebody else that wanted to start a company in the CPG space, what advice would you give them?
It's really good. It's like the one you don't want to rush into. I think that as I've matured over the years, I mean, there's like three things that I try to do well, I guess. One that I've not always done very well is to just hone in on when my gut is telling me something strongly. There's a few times that I've ignored that, and usually it's the right answer. And if you wait too long on it, it can kind of bite you. It could be something simple, or it could be kind of some of those past. And I think that ties in appropriately with just being very intentional with your decision making and making active choices versus being passive on the journey. The more that you can lean into being, a decision maker in your own path, I think is really helpful, right? And I think everyone has great ideas separated by their big doers as well, and people that follow through. So I try and take that advice myself pretty often, and then just be good to people, which is also really simple, but be good and be there for people when they need you. And then I think that comes back in spades as well.
I think that's fantastic advice, right? Like, I know you said it was simple, but yeah, if you do that, right? If you're trusting your gut, if you're being intentional, I like the active versus passive. And then, yeah, if you're just good to people, if you follow those three things, you're going to be successful in probably any career path, not just CPG.
Yeah, CPG is hard, so just remember, hard things are hard for a reason. But
That's true.
Yeah,
awesome.
It is for sure. Awesome.
Very good. Well, this is it, guys. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, and love what you guys are doing. And I'll be active listening, especially to the Libra episode.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for everything, and thanks for staying so late. I see it's now pitch black outside there, so really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll get to see you at CHFA East in the near future, and come try the new products and chat then, catch up.
For sure. Love it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Good luck this weekend. Have a good race.
Yes.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
All the best. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right. See you guys.
Well, that was awesome. It was so great catching up with Andrew, hearing about everything he's doing. Clearly still a much better athlete than we are. He's got a run coming up, and just amazing, like how quickly he's like, yeah, so I was in the Olympics and then I did this. It's like, that's a pretty big deal. It's getting over pretty quick, but it's just super humble guy. Alex, what did you think?
I thought it was a really great all-round guy in terms of his personality and his approach to his business and everything else. I think I generally find that when I meet an East Coaster, they're just like instantly likable, and
they are
also instantly trustworthy. Like,
yes.
I feel like, if we were having like a beer with him, I'd probably be like telling him like my life story in like 5 minutes in, just because like you just feel like comfy with the East Coast people. I don't know what it is, but they got a good energy.
Anyhow. Yeah, and I loved even hearing about like Sheena's background with, she lived on a farm and her father was a baker, and it's like, well, that makes sense why the bars are so freaking delicious. So
100%.
Some of the background there, and then pairing that with, if an Olympic athlete is eating these every day, then I'm definitely okay eating these every day. So really cool story there, and yeah, just loved sort of the way that he talked about working with his wife and the respect that he had for her, and everything that they do is like a true partnership. I thought that was very cool. Alex, in terms of a key takeaway, what do you think?
Honestly, like, this does relate to what he said at the end, but I think it's a thread that he clearly had throughout. And he gave the advice at the end about being intentional, but I think it's the actions that are part of his career journey that really show it. Making that decision after finishing undergrad to go and pursue his Olympic dream. I think that takes a real growth mindset. Obviously, to be an Olympian, it always does, but to do it, and just commit, and then to decide to do his MBA, kind of go a different direction, start his own venture, and then move into working with Sheena. I think the listening to your gut piece, he said, for sure, but I think it's really about making things happen, and clearly Andrew is someone who's made a lot of things happen in his life and around him. So kudos to that. And I think remembering that, nothing happens if you don't start and if you don't take action. So I thought, the intentional takeaway, the intentional decision-making piece is a big one for me.
Yeah, I agree. I like the active versus passive. I thought that was excellent. And my key takeaway is also related to one of his 3 items at the end, but he talked about it a few times, which was sort of around the be good to people. And Made with Local is a company that prides themselves on being a force for good. He talked about how this year he's really excited to connect with customers more. He talked about the importance of community and hiring the right people and being a force for good with the environment and with their customers and all those things. So it's almost like his thought process around being good to people is like why Made with Local was created, was to help all these different people. And I just think that goes a long way. And I think that authenticity is the difference between their brand and some others and why they're so successful.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate you taking the time to join us and learn with us. A massive thank you to Andrew for taking the time out of his evening to jump on with us and just share his journey and his learnings and insights. If you're not already, please follow us on social media, Instagram or LinkedIn, and give us reviews on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. A 5-star review goes a long way to helping get the Hearts and Carts gospel out there to the world. And don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. Let us know what you're liking, what maybe you'd like to hear more of, or if there's something we could add to the format or questions you'd like to hear answers to. And without anything else to add, thanks so much for listening, and look forward to being back next week with another great guest.
Thanks, everyone.